It was Halloween 2012. We always had the day off after Halloween because it was a church holy day when I was in high school, so my friends were game to start our weekends early. On nights when we didn't go to parties, we would typically do the same thing. Sit on my front steps for a few hours and joke around, then walk the neighborhood and usually end up at this shady pizza place across town, because the prices were so low since a few of us had jobs. There were 3 of us. Me, Pat, and Jack. We finished our food, filled our drinks, and headed back to my house. To get there, we had to cross a large mall parking lot that was about 4 football fields long and 2 wide. I should point out at this point that we weren't naive or stupid kids. We had all grown up in the city and had experienced our fair share of urban life. All 3 of us were pretty sophisticated. It was around 10:30 at night and the pizza place. So we're strolling through this parking lot, which is completely empty with no one in sight, when we suddenly notice a white tradesman van following us slowly from about 100 yards away. This may sound cliche, but I guarantee it's a true tale. We quickened our pace when I pointed out to my friends. To appear far larger than we actually are, we hunch our shoulders and pop the collars on our jackets. When the van accelerates up and blocks our path because it is completely dark inside, someone screams out in a non-threatening voice, "Hey man, happy Halloween, you guys like Halloween?" We had nowhere to go and could have bolted, but they were in a van that would easily catch up to us, so we'd have to turn our backs on them despite the jocular way he stated it. A vehicle doesn't cut you off in a parking lot unless it has evil intentions. "Hey man, you guys like Halloween?" I reply, attempting to sound stern. "Yeah, but it's over now, all right, so we're going home and you're on our way." After a brief stillness that felt like it dragged on for hours, Jack abruptly breaks the tension by sternly saying, "We still have tons of candy in here." The tone suddenly changed and we still can't see anyone in the van. Once he said the back door of the van flew open and 2 very large men stepped out. "Hey, listen up, man. I don't know what you think you're about to do, but if you don't leave, it's going to be a problem," he added. They were both wearing these cheap Mitt Romney masks, which is when we realized this wasn't a Halloween prank. At that point, all 3 of us went to leave, but the van began driving circles around us. They were wearing black suits and black leather gloves and were well-built and strong-looking. However, what made them the most menacing was that they were both wearing them. We didn't know how we were going to escape this predicament. We were all preparing for the fight of our lives, and I have no idea what these guys were trying to do with 3 18-year-old men, but they seemed to know what they were doing. When the van stopped, it appeared as though they were about to act. There were 3 of us that night, as I indicated. Our friend Pat, who had been silent up until this time, then softly leaned in and said, "Okay," to the 2 of us. "Hey, this is a Hail Mary, but prepare to freak out run when I say go all right." He picked up one of our sodas, which was in a cup, and threw it with all his might at the driver's side window. The window was open, and the cup miraculously connected with the driver's head patch screen while we were running. The van swelled off in the opposite direction, and we hurried our asses home. Jack and I were both perplexed. He casually emptied the drink from his hand, slipped a big ass rock into the cup, and waited for the right moment. The driver, who thought the kid had just thrown a drink at him, ended up getting hit in the head with the rock, which likely knocked him out cold and gave us time to get away. All that was left after that was pulling off a miracle to get the rock to hit. Perhaps a guardian angel or God himself took care of it. It continues to astound me, but more on that later. Kids, stay calm in stressful situations. If you lose your composure, you'll lose the battle. Halloween is by far my favorite season of the year, and I'm a 32-year-old woman living in Colorado. However, one Halloween stands out in my memory that I'll never forget, and it wasn't for the good reasons you might think. It was in 2007, when I was about 17 years old. And once it got dark, I met up with some of my friends, including Brittany, Rick, Curtis, and Micah. We came across this group of guys who were smoking a meth pipe in the open while we were enjoying ourselves in a caravan park. We just walked right past them when one of them yelled, "Hey," as loudly as he could. It must have been about 20 minutes of walking. Curtis responded, "Yeah," one of the guys asked in a demanding voice. Want to give me a hit of what you got there?" As we all came to a stop and turned around. When one of them turned around and begged for $5 again, Curtis held up the roach we had just finished smoking and said, "Sorry, man, we just finished it off." He added, "I'm sorry, man. I'm broke." It was Halloween at the time, so there were a lot of people everywhere, but I didn't mind. The guy gave a really strange smile with his crooked yellow teeth, but his eyes were dead and cold. It was very unsettling and obviously a forced smile. He then said, "Oh, all right, you guys have a good night. Return back." And he started to walk away. Something was off about that group of people. But then again, they were on hard drugs. Everyone scattered in different directions as we were both traveling down the road. I scaled a few fences and hid in a random person's shed. My heart was pounding so rapidly that I thought it may burst. After waiting for about 20 minutes, I slowly opened the shed and glanced outside. I didn't see anyone, so I started looking for my pals and saw Brittany and Rick. Curtis was nowhere to be found, and Micah Curtis's phone had died. When Michael wasn't responding, we eventually located Curtis, who had been stabbed in the leg, had his barrage stolen, and whose clothes were covered in blood. We immediately called 911 before locating Micah, who was lying on the sidewalk. She could hardly stand up, but when she did, she told us that 2 of the men had jumped her, assaulted her, and taken money from her pocket as collateral. Micah is approximately 115 pounds and is about 5 feet 1. It disgusts me to think that mature guys were so intoxicated that they believed it was acceptable to beat up an innocent young girl in that manner. It absolutely ruined one of my favorite vacations, and even years later, I constantly worry about it. You should always carry a weapon, such as a taser or pepper spray, because you never know what kind of weirdos might be hiding in the shadows if a group of odd people shout out to you. This happened to me when I was approximately 9 years old, and I'm a girl. I cherished going door to door for candy at the time in my community. This didn't last long because my neighborhood wasn't exactly safe at that point. 1992 was that year. I dressed up in a small devil costume that year, complete with paste-on horns and the usual, a little bold for a church party, but several other kids were dressed as devils, and I saw many girls dressed as witches. I attended a church Halloween party where there were many kids that I recognized from school and from near Biarritz. Every child who attended received goodie bags at the door from Father Francis for some reason. Every child who was dressed up as a witch or a devil got a baggie of homemade cookies that looked like sugar cookies with powdered sugar, dusting the tops. The party host, who I'll call Father Francis, stood greeting everyone. I remember him being dressed like a version of Captain Hook. Even though the celebration was a lot of fun, I couldn't wait to come home and enjoy a cookie that Father Francis had warned us from eating since he claimed it was our little secret. When I got home, I decided to give one a try the following day. I recall almost immediately tossing the cookie in the garbage because it tasted awful, and the powdered sugar had a bitter aftertaste. My mother noticed my reaction and asked to try one. When she did, her reaction was the same as mine. At the time, I didn't see anything sinister, but looking back, something seemed strange and off. I explained that my father, Francis, had given me a bag of them. She demanded to know where I got them, so I said that my father had given them to me. She grabbed the bag, looked inside at the cookies, smelled it suspiciously, tasted the powdered sugar, and then said, "Don't eat those, honey. Those are bad, very bad cookies." It was Saturday. We had no way of finding out about our classmates or friends. On Monday, I learned the worst had happened. 16 children, who had all been given a bag of cookies, were hospitalized for contamination. We discovered that the powdered sugar was actually ant chalk. Thankfully, I never fell ill, because I only bit one cookie and never swallowed it. Father Francis was ultimately sentenced to 20 years in prison for his role. Although he claimed in his defense that he was doing God's work by purging the world of evil, he turned out to be a wicked man who had no sympathy for the sick or dying children. I overheard him yelling, "I did God's work, I'm a tool of God, I did nothing wrong." From that point on, I never went to another church party of any kind, and my trust in those people was pretty much destroyed. I also almost never took baked goods from anyone again. But if I had been one of those who had consumed the entire bag, there's a strong chance I would have ended up in the hospital or even worse. The more cautionary the narrative is about accepting anything from others, even if they are people of cloth from another country. In the chilling depths of darkness where fear and terror converge, we've embarked on this spine-tingling journey through the macabre. As we bid farewell to the horrors that haunt the shadows, remember, the next time you tune in, a new nightmare awaits. Stay vigilant, my friends, and may your dreams be free from the terrors we've unearthed tonight.